I don't know, everyone. It feels to me that when a manager is performing horribly in his job, like Ange Postecoglou last season, like Erik ten Hag before, obviously he got the sack at Man United, and now Ruben Amorim, it feels like when these managers are struggling to perform, they just talk about Mikel Arteta and the fact that he struggled at Arsenal before he turned it around and turned us into a team that was capable of challenging for the title. Now, I understand that there is learnings from what the Kroenkes, Arteta and everyone at Arsenal did in sticking by Mikel to getting to a point at which Arsenal are taken seriously in this division. I understand that there are things we should learn, inspirations to take, and that everyone should learn that not every direction of travel is always up. There are downs in there too. But I'm going to come with some cold facts in this. I'm going to come with some real data and explain to you why Mikel Arteta's journey cannot be compared to all these other managers who are performing horribly and significantly worse than he ever did in the Arsenal job. I want to talk about some stuff that Jim Ratcliffe said, where he talked about Mikel Arteta as an example as to why they should stick with managers and how Ruben Amorim's going to be given 3 years, which United fans debate that amongst yourselves whether he deserves time or not. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about why Arteta's journey is different. But what I really wanted to talk about more was this graphic from Sky Sports. And international breaks, standard bit of content showing that in the first 50 games in charge for Amorim and Arteta, Arteta's 27 wins to Amorim's 19, which is a fairly significant jump, with 10 draws to Amorim's 12, 13 games lost to Amorim's 19, scoring only one more goal, but conceding far fewer there. Now, I don't know if this graphic is meant to show that, well, look what Arteta did, it's somewhat comparable, because I don't actually think the numbers are that close. If that is the implication, I think the tweet that came with it kind of suggested that it was. I think they were sort of implying that maybe there's that sort of direction. Now, to be fair to Sky Sports, this is just one graphic. They will be covering a lot of news, a lot of opinions, and they've done real segments like on Monday Night Football, where Jamie Carragher here broke down, their points since Amorim took over, looked at how he's done compared to the last 6 permanent Manchester United managers, and also looked at his points from the first 33 games compared to other managers who've had the fewest points after that many. They have done significant analysis on Amorim and the sort of shocking results he's put forward as Manchester United manager. But once again, Mikel Arteta gets brought forward in this conversation, if not by the media, then certainly by the fans, when they're saying, almost as their kind of go-to, their blanket, well, we've got to stick by Amorim because look at Arteta. Let's go through the data properly and really break down why that isn't a fair comparison. I want to show you the first windows that both had, which funnily enough were both in January because they arrived mid-season. Mikel Arteta brought in 2 players at a total cost of nothing because Pablo Mari was a loan and Cedric was a free transfer. Actually, maybe they were both loans and then became, I think Cedric was then a free. Anyway. And only one player left, which I believe was Eddie Nketiah on loan. Ruben Amorim, or maybe he'd already gone. So maybe he didn't get any players out that window, Mikel Arteta. Apologies, I can't quite remember when Eddie Nketiah left. Ruben Amorim, on the other hand, signed one player. It was Dorgu for £25 million, so got somewhat investment in the squad, but 3 big players left with Antony, Sancho and Rashford all out the door. The ownership very much backing Amorim and saying, we're happy to let these players go. If they don't fit your system, doesn't matter how much they cost us, we're happy to reinvent the squad, or at least start to, under your vision. So they both come in, difficult situations. Amorim earlier in the season, I think it was about 12, I think it was match week 12, I think he came in. Arteta, it was match week 19. They play out their seasons, both getting to cup finals. Mikel Arteta won his, a 2-1 win against Chelsea with a 3-4-3 formation, adapting his original 4-3-3 formation, or 4-2-3-1 formation that he was trying to play with Arsenal. He's not played the 3-4-3 since basically that year of 2020, but he did it to adapt in a way that would help him win a FA Cup, should I say. The Europa League final, Manchester United sticking with the principles that hadn't worked throughout the season, that hadn't seen an upturn in form. We're going to go through that data in a sec. Lost to Tottenham 1-0 in the Europa League final, a game which would have got them Champions League football. So similarities already in Arteta and Amorim arriving mid-season, both having a run to a cup final. Arteta performing significantly better against a much better team in Chelsea who got Champions League football that year. Manchester United losing to the worst Tottenham team we may have ever seen in the Premier League from a points perspective. United went and lost to them. They had Kulusevski, Maddison out, I think. Can't remember. Yeah, I think they did have Maddison out. It was a shocking night for Manchester United. Then you go into the deeper data. And what I wanted to look at here was the basically per game difference in the games before the new manager arrived and how they did once they arrived. So walk with me on this. So I've got the first season impact, key data compared to the previous manager. Since Mikel Arteta arrived, the points per game went up by plus 0.38. The wins per game went up by 0.18. The goals per game went up by 0.27. Yes, this did take a lot of number crunching for me. And the goals against per game was better. That's why I got a plus of 0.45, but it was better is what I'm trying to say. So actually they were conceding 0.545 goals per game less. They went up 3 league positions from 11th to 8th. Ruben Amorim came in. They got worse on the points per game. They got worse on the wins per game. They went up with 0.09 goals per game better than they were doing under Ten Hag that season. They got worse for goals against per game. So again, just to make that point very clear, the minus, I'm trying to say that they got worse by 0.46, which means they were conceding 0.46 goals per game more, and their league position dropped 4 places as well. In fact, when Amorim took over, they were 4 points off the top 4 and finished 15th, I think, in the end, which is absolutely shambolic. So they all come in, cup finals, pretty underwhelming January for both, and then we see how the teams actually responded to the coaches arriving in terms of some key data throughout the league season there in those games that they were able to take control of. Both got more than half the season to have an impact. Let's compare the manager's first summer windows. Here's what Ruben Amorim got. 250 million euros of investment with Sesko, one of the most sought after strikers in the world, and Burmo, Cunha and a new goalkeeper all coming in. Very significant investment there compared to Mikel Arteta's first summer. And look at that, 86 million euros. Thomas Partey, the standout signing. Gabriel Magalhaes. Okay, Martin Odegaard came in on loan, but that wasn't until the January after, so we can't include that in the first summer. Willian was a free transfer too. And that's not to say that Arteta hasn't made mistakes, but we can't say that he had the same funds to play with. And I know what a lot of you are about to say, the pandemic. We'll get to that in a second as well. That resulted in both managers having very, very different values for their squads, with Manchester United going into the season at 723 million euros. Arsenal's going into the 2021 season, 568.5 million euros. Some of the key players, of course, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, the main one, but otherwise not too much to shout about in that squad. Some young players coming through as well. Now, there are other factors. I just touched on the pandemic there. That was a big one. Mikel Arteta had to spend a lot of that first season he had basically playing behind closed doors without an Emirates atmosphere, away from his team for ages, not being able to take training the way he'd want. It had a massive impact on him and other managers too. But again, when you're comparing the starts that Ten Hag, Amorim and others got, it's just not comparable to Mikel Arteta. The lack of spending in the squad previously, Amorim has inherited a squad that has De Ligt, that has, see now they're escaping, Lenny Yoro, that has a lot of investment, Bruno Fernandes, players that have come in, Ugarte, players that have come in for a lot of money, Lisandro Martinez. And there is a degree of quality there to play with. I don't think the Man United squad is that good. I think there's still quite a bit of work to do there. But I also don't think it's miles off. I think you had 2-3 players. And actually, there's a really good 11 there to play with. With Arsenal's squad, it needed surgery. It needed the full thing. And Mikel Arteta's had to oversee that. Now, again, has he got everything right? Has there been money wasted? Sure. But again, compare the jobs and what they inherited. For me, you can't compare them. I think quite clearly the Manchester United squad has had more investment over that time, therefore more potential quality in there to get from the team. The other thing is that Ruben Amorim is coming in after a string of appalling appointments, so really trying to raise the level at Manchester United shouldn't be that difficult. Mikel Arteta took over essentially after Arsene Wenger, but of course Unai Emery was in there. He finished 5th the season before. These are more established managers. To be fair, Ten Hag's an established manager, but before him was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. What I'm saying is the pressure post-Wenger was still there somewhat for Arteta, whereas Amorim is long past the Sir Alex Ferguson days. And then I've got this as well, that there were no trophies in the team since 2017 for Arteta. And I know that we in ourselves are now in a bigger drought since 2017 to 2020. But again, to turn things around and win a trophy is fairly impressive. Amorim inherited a squad that had won 2 trophies and got to, he got to the Europa League final, he got to the FA Cup final, was it? Last season. Yeah, it was last season they won the FA Cup. So 2 trophies in 2-3 years or whatever it was under Erik Ten Hag. You know, there was a squad there that at least had a bit of a know-how to win games, and to perform that poorly in the Europa League final was really surprising. I think a lot of people thought, well, at least United know how to do these kind of days, and they didn't. Amorim still couldn't get that tune out of them. So, look, everyone, this video was just to go through some really kind of key bits of data for me that really highlight, and some key context that really highlight why you can't just say, well, Arteta needed time, so Amorim needs it too. I don't know if Amorim needs time and if he'll turn it around with it. I don't know if he's just a shocking manager who should be sacked immediately. I don't know. United fans, debate that amongst yourselves. But what I can't keep hearing is a total lack of context for the job that Mikel Arteta did. Now, it's funny because this is 2 videos in a row I've done on this channel defending the manager. A lot of people think I'm overly critical of him, that I'm sort of far too cynical about the work he's done. I think he's done a brilliant job, but I'll always try to be fair. And when I think there's context to the things he's doing quite well, but I think he could do better, I'll talk about that. But when there's context to the things that some people almost try to drag down, they go, well, you know, look how bad it was under Arteta and he turned it around. Yes, it was bad, but it wasn't Amorim bad. Like, it never got to that level. It never got to Postecoglou under Tottenham bad. People say, well, he won the Europa League. I get it. I'm talking about domestically. So when it comes to all this, I just think context needs applying. And I think Mikel Arteta had a far harder, you know, hand dealt, for want of a better analogy. And I think he's done a terrific job to turn things around. I just don't think you can keep throwing these other managers into that conversation and go, well, they should sort it. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. 2 videos in a row defending Mikel. There we go. Feeling energized for football to come back. That will return this weekend. And of course, we've got the Goonerverse podcast later this week, so look out for that as well. Big thank you to everyone who's tuned in. Subscribe to the video if you haven't yet. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. And I'll catch you all very soon.